On December 1st, 2025, the VA's annual cost of living adjustment quietly took effect, and it reset something almost nobody has thought to go back and check. Not your disability rating, not your branch, not where you served, your birth decade. The VA has quietly started treating veterans differently based on the decade they were born, and if you were born in the 1940s, 1950s, or 1960s, the rules that apply to your benefits right now are not the same rules that applied last year. Not slightly different, structurally different. The presumptive conditions tied to your service years have changed. The evidence thresholds have changed. And for veterans in the 1950s cohort, the single largest benefit expansion in a decade just landed on your record, whether you filed for it or not. Most of you have not filed for it. The VA is not calling to tell you that money is sitting there. Not a notification, not a letter, nothing. That is not how this system works. I've watched the coverage on this, and it's all percentage increases and new compensation tables. Nobody's explaining what the 2026 numbers actually mean if you were born in the 1940s, the 1950s, or the 1960s. Because depending on which of those three groups you fall into, this reset lands on you in three completely different ways. I am no expert, but every week on this channel, I cover the real financial information that affects seniors directly, the rules that changed, the protections you already qualify for, and the steps that actually make a difference. This is exactly the kind of content I put out every single week, and you do not want to miss it. If that's what you're after, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. Now let's get into it. Let's get the basics straight first, because the reason this matters is more interesting than most people realize. The cost of living adjustment didn't just bump one number. It reset the pension thresholds, the survivor benefit rates, and the disability compensation tables for all of 2026 at once. And how much that reset actually helps you depends heavily on your age and your era of service. What applies to a veteran in their early 60s is not what applies to a veteran in their late 70s or 80s. So we're going through this in three parts by decade, and then I'm covering one benefit at the end that applies equally to every veteran listening, regardless of birth year. And it happens to be the single most underclaimed benefit in the entire VA system. Point one, veterans born in the 1940s. This is the most time-sensitive group of the three. If you were born in the 1940s, you're between 76 and 86 this year. Korea-era veterans, early Vietnam-era veterans, Cold War-era veterans, and this group has the highest share of long-standing, slowly worsening service-connected conditions of any of the three. The first thing that matters here is aid and attendance, and specifically its net worth limit. Aid and attendance is an enhanced VA pension for veterans who need regular help with daily living, bathing, dressing, cooking, managing medication, moving safely around the house. For 2026, the net worth ceiling used to determine eligibility sits at roughly $163,699, adjusted every year with the cost of living increase. That figure excludes your primary residence, up to 2 acres of land under it, your vehicle, and ordinary personal belongings. If you or a parent applied in the last couple of years and got denied for having too much in savings, it's worth checking that number again before assuming the answer is still no. Countable income also gets reduced by unreimbursed medical and care costs, which catches a lot of people off guard. Some veterans earning several $1,000s a month in Social Security and retirement income still qualify once care expenses are factored in. The form is VA Form 2 1P534EZ, available at va.gov. The monthly benefit can run into the thousands of dollars, and it's tax-free. The second issue for this group is dependency and indemnity compensation, DIC, for surviving spouses. DIC pays a base rate of $1,699.36 a month in 2026, with additional amounts depending on dependents and other qualifying factors. It's paid when a veteran's death is connected to their service, or when the veteran was rated totally disabled for a set number of years before death. If you're a veteran in this decade, make sure whoever would file this, a spouse, an adult child, knows the benefit exists and has your VA award letter and DD 214 somewhere they can find them. Filing an intent to file first can protect an earlier effective date while the full paperwork gets gathered, because DIC is not automatically backdated to cover time before you apply. A delay of even a year in filing means a year of payments, over $20,000 at the current rate, that generally can't be recovered later. Point 2. Veterans born in the 1950s. This is the biggest group of the three by population. You're between 66 and 76 this year, covering the bulk of Vietnam-era veterans, the post-Vietnam cohort, and the earliest Gulf War veterans. You're sitting at a genuinely tricky intersection, old enough that many of you are drawing Social Security, young enough that you're still actively managing claims with decades of payments ahead. The issue that trips up this group most is the overlap between VA disability and Social Security, and separately, the overlap between VA healthcare and Medicare. On the Social Security side, VA disability compensation itself does not reduce or offset your Social Security retirement benefit. The two systems are separate, despite a lot of outdated information floating around suggesting otherwise. Where it gets complicated is TDIU, total disability based on individual unemployability, which pays at the 100% rate for veterans whose service-connected conditions prevent substantially gainful employment. Social Security retirement income by itself does not automatically disqualify you from TDIU. But if the VA ever sends correspondence questioning your TDIU status because of income showing up in your file, respond in writing right away, with documentation showing that income is retirement-based rather than current wages. Letting that kind of inquiry sit unanswered is what actually puts payments at risk. On the Medicare side, if you're enrolled in both VA healthcare and Medicare, it's worth a phone call to your VA Medical Center's billing office to confirm Medicare Part B is correctly on file and being billed as primary for non-service connected care. This is standard coordination of benefits practice. Not a new rule, but plenty of veterans have outdated information on file and end up with copay bills they shouldn't be getting. A 10-minute call can clear up balances that have been sitting there for months. Before point 3, the benefits, discounts, and assistance programs most seniors qualify for but never actually use. I've gathered them all in one spot, organized by state and program, so you don't have to dig through confusing government websites for hours. It's called the Senior Exemption Playbook, and it's sitting in the first pinned comment right under this video. Just tap it once and you'll have everything you need. Now stay right here, because the last section is where the numbers get bigger than anything we've covered so far. Point 3, veterans born in the 1960s. You're between 56 and 66 this year, and out of the three groups, you have the longest benefit horizon by far. A veteran in their late 50s or early 60s who locks in a higher rating today could be collecting that higher monthly amount for another 25 to 30 years. Run the math. The current gap between a 70% rating and a 100% rating with no dependents is $2,130.13 a month. Over 30 years, that's more than $766,000 in lifetime compensation. That's the scale of what's at stake in decisions veterans in this decade make right now. The biggest opportunity for this group is the PACT Act supplemental claim window for toxic exposure conditions. If you served in the Gulf War, Somalia, the Balkans, or anywhere in the Southwest Asia theater after August 2nd, 1990, and you were denied for a burn pit, contaminated water, or other toxic exposure condition before the PACT Act took effect in August 2022, that denial is worth revisiting. Here's why the math matters so much for this age group. If the original claim was filed years ago, a successful supplemental claim can restore an effective date going all the way back to that original filing, meaning a large retroactive lump sum on top of the new, higher monthly rate going forward. As an example, a claim originally filed in 2010 for a condition now on the PACT Act presumptive list, approved in 2026 at the 60% rate of $1,435.02 a month, produces roughly 192 months of back pay, north of $275,000 in a single retroactive payment. That's not hypothetical. That's the actual arithmetic playing out for real veterans right now. The form is VA Form 200995, submitted through va.gov/decision-reviews/supplemental-claim. For conditions already on the PACT Act presumptive list, you generally don't need a separate nexus letter. The service location and current diagnosis are enough. The second thing worth doing in this decade, if any service-connected condition has worsened, file an intent to file right away. The effective date on an increase locks in from the date you notify the VA, not from the date the condition actually got worse. So waiting costs you money you never get back, even if the increase is approved later. Now the benefit I promised at the start, the one that applies equally across all 3 decades, and the one the largest number of veterans in every one of them has never claimed. It's special monthly compensation, SMC, and it is genuinely the most underclaimed category in the entire VA disability system. Regardless of age, SMC provides additional monthly payments on top of or in place of for veterans whose service-connected conditions involve loss of a limb or organ, loss of use of a paired body part, blindness, or a need for regular aid and attendance from another person. Depending on the level, 2026 rates run from around $140 a month, added on top of your existing rating, up past $11,000 a month at the highest tiers for veterans needing extensive daily care. Here's the part that applies to every veteran listening, no matter your birth year. The VA does not automatically screen your file for SMC eligibility when it assigns your rating, and it doesn't revisit that question when your conditions get worse. Nobody sends a letter saying you now qualify for a higher SMC category. A 1940s era veteran who now needs help with daily living and hasn't had their file reviewed for SMC is potentially leaving real money unclaimed every single month. A 1950s era veteran with loss of use of a limb who's never asked about SMCL is in the same position. A 1960s era veteran with significant hearing or vision loss tied to service is often eligible for a category they've never heard of. Same oversight every decade. What to actually do: submit a written request to your VA regional office, specifically asking for evaluation under special monthly compensation, citing 38 CFR 3.350, and listing the conditions you believe may qualify. This is separate from a standard disability claim. It doesn't happen automatically just because you filed once before. If you're not sure whether your conditions fit, an accredited Veteran Service Organization representative can walk through it with you for free. The DAV, VFW, and American Legion all offer this at no cost. So here's the full picture, zoomed out. Born in the 1940s. Check whether the current $163,699 net worth limit changes your aid and attendance eligibility if you were denied before. And make sure your family knows about DIC and has your paperwork ready. Born in the 1950s, confirm your Medicare Part B information is current with VA healthcare and respond immediately to any correspondence questioning your TDIU status. Born in the 1960s, Look hard at a PACT Act supplemental claim if you were denied for toxic exposure before 2022, and file an intent to file the moment any condition worsens. And every veteran in every one of these 3 decades request a formal SMC evaluation in writing. 3 decades, 3 different situations, one benefit that ties all of them together. And none of it happens automatically. It only happens when you ask.